So this morning, as I was praying, I had a epiphany in some ways, and it's not really an epiphany. It's kind of something that we always know, um, is that God's ultimate desire, like His number one desire, is to be deeply connected with us. The way that Jesus Christ describes it is perfect. Jesus Christ said that I am in the Father and that the Father is in me. And ultimately, this is the kind of relationship that we are invited to step into with the Father, that His presence is in us, His power is in us, His love is in us, His Spirit is in us. But unfortunately, there's something that gets in the way. And ultimately, that's what motivated me to want to do this series. Because one of the wrestles that I've had in my life is distraction. And many of you know that I was a latchkey kid. And basically, the idea of a latchkey kid is that your parents are at work, so you come home from school and your parents are still at work. So I would get home and it would be like silent, silent. And when you are 10, 11 years old, a silent house is kind of scary. It doesn't matter how big the house is. And so in order for me to be comfortable with that, I would always have like music on, television on. And eventually what happens is there is this message that I kind of bought into. And the message that I bought into was simply this, was when life is too overwhelming, find distraction. And that kind of became like the motif of my life. And so I read a book called Undistracted by Bob Goff, and I thought this was a really great book, one that I also recommend. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do a sermon series based on that book, so hence dialed in. But with that, it was really, as I was doing research for this message, there's actually a quote that I thought was really interesting and I wanted to share with you guys. And you can actually read it right on the screen. And the quote says this, the dog, so if you click, there you go, perfect. The dog wanted attention, so I petted him. This is a person writing an article about distraction, right? The writing article about distraction. Here's what it said. The dog wanted attention, so I petted them. And my phone would ding when a text came in, so I got up to check. I was tired, so I took a nap. I might have gotten sucked into some extended time scrolling through Instagram. It was remarkably difficult to it was remarkably difficult to focus on writing about distractions because, well, I was too busy being distracted. Interesting, right? So I also did some more research, and of course, we know one of the greatest forms of our distraction is what? This guy right here, right? This guy right here. So I just wanted to find out just what they say about cell phone. So there was a website that I went to called reviews.org, and they were just asking people about their cell phone usage in 2025. And here's what they found. They found that the average American picks up their phone 205 times a day. 205. Now, some of you go, wow, that's a lot. Some of you are going, that's it? They also found this, which I thought was really interesting. They found that 81% of the people that were surveyed said that they checked their phones within the first 10 minutes when they wake up. 81%. 76% said they checked their phone within 5 minutes after receiving a notification. Now, here's the reality is, think about how many notifications we get now, right? That's a lot of checking. That's a lot of checking. And then the other one, which was really interesting, it said 85% of the people surveyed considered themselves addicted to their phone. 85%. That's really honest. And they found the other 15% were just lying. No, I'm just joking. Just joking. But 85%. And then 66% of the people confessed to using their phones on the toilet. 66%. All right, and those are probably men. right? Yeah. And then here's the one. This last one, I'm sure, has annoyed you to no end. I know it has annoyed you. I know that you've experienced it. It has annoyed you. And that is 88% of the people surveyed said they checked their phone at least once while watching a movie in the theater. Isn't that annoying? You're watching this movie, it's dark, and all of a sudden, whoop, this light comes on, kind of, that's annoying. But you look at all of these aspects of distraction. And so what I wanted to do this morning is kind of dive into this aspect and looking at it. And I think the first thing that we should do, though, is we should define what a distraction is. So what we've done is we have a definition there. Distraction is anything that pulls our attention away, slowing progress, breaking focus, and weakening connection. So specifically, we're looking at being intimate and connected with God. Anything that pulls us away from being connected with him and who he is, that's a distraction. So I want to make this really clear. Like if you're working and all of a sudden you get a call from home and you have to go home for an emergency, that's not a distraction. That's just life. Or if you have a plan to get together with friends, that's not a distraction. You know what a distraction is? A distraction, and even breaks. Taking a break during the day, that's also not a distraction. But I'll give you an example of a distraction. Hey, you know what? I'm going to take a 30-minute break, and I'm just going to watch a show on Netflix, just for 30 minutes. So we sit down, we turn on the TV, we hit the Netflix app, da-dun, that pops up kind of thing. And then we find our show and we watch it, and we're only going to watch for 30 minutes. And we're watching, and then all of a sudden a message comes up from Netflix that says, are you still watching? Because that message only pops up if you've been watching for like at least 90 minutes straight. That's the only time it pops up. So you sat down to take a 30-minute break. Next thing you know, you've watched the entire show. So that's an example of a distraction. Or, you know what? I'm just going to go on Instagram for 20 minutes, right? 2 hours later. They call it what? Doom scrolling, right? And you're there and you're kind of trapped into it and you kind of find yourself falling into it as well. And so I just want what I want to do is I just want to look at there's a proverb in the Bible. It's Proverbs chapter 5. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to kind of walk through this proverb together. And here's the thing that's really interesting about this proverb is that it was written by a guy that we talked about last week. And his name is, you guys remember who we talked about last week? His name is Solomon, right? We talked about Solomon last night. Now, here's the thing that's really interesting. This proverb is written to his son. It's written to his son, and the proverb is all about avoiding the immoral woman, which is really interesting because last week we saw that Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. So I don't know if he's the authority to talk about avoiding the immoral woman, but what's really great about this passage is we can look at the immoral woman, and we can see that, and it really is a good metaphor for what it's like to be distracted. Really great metaphor. So we're going to kind of walk through that together. But before we jump to that, here's what we're going to do is we're going to look at the end of the passage first. So in Proverbs chapter 5, verses 21 through 23, it says, "For the Lord sees clearly what a man does, examining every path he takes. An evil man is held captive by his own sins. They are ropes that catch and hold him. He will die for lack of self-control. He will be lost because of his great foolishness." So that's what happens as a result of someone that is also distracted by something in life. Now, I love some of the imagery that is used there. It says that he is captured by sin. So the picture that I always think of as I read this passage is I think about someone being kidnapped. Somebody being kidnapped. So I'll tell you that the day of my bachelor party, and one of the things we did for my bachelor party that was a lot of fun is we actually ended up doing an all-nighter of laser tag. That's what I wanted to do for my bachelor party. It was a lot of fun. But what my friends did is I was at a friend's house, and all of a sudden, a bunch of friends ran into the house, and then they kidnapped me. And I had no idea this was coming. So they came in, they wrestled me to the ground, and they put a bag over my head. So I had no idea. They put a bag over my head, and then they zip-tied my hands behind my back, and they threw me in the back of my friend's van. So we're rolling along and everything, and but that actually gave me a great picture of what it's like to be kidnapped by distraction. Because what happens is initially when you kidnap someone, you do right, and you've seen that where they put the bag over their head, and the whole goal of the bag is to do what? Is to one, disorient them. Two is so the person can't figure out what they are or where they are. They can't figure out what they're doing. They can't figure out what's going on. It's completely, and that's what happens with distraction. Is that it causes us to lose sight of what really matters, what's really important. We don't really know where it is that we're going. We don't know what it just kind of takes us completely off of our path. And then the other thing that they do is they zip tie you, right? So the idea behind that is now that you are held captive. Because if you could, and usually what happens is they zip tie you where behind your, with your hands behind your back, which was really funny because what they did was they actually didn't use zip ties back then. They kind of used a belt and kind of locked me in. And what was really funny is that the people that were in the front seat weren't paying attention to what I was doing in the back seat. So they actually took me to a park, and they had me stand in the park, just kind of like standing and just standing there at the park. I had no idea that they were filming me, just in the middle of some random park. But at that point, what they didn't realize is I had already escaped from the bounding behind my back. So my hands were actually free. So when they went to come and put me back in the band, I took off running, which was a lot of fun. But that was one of those. So as we look at this, that's the idea too of being bound. So not only are we captured by it, we are handcuffed to it. We are minimized the possibility of who we are and who we could be. It's handcuffed. There's no freedom that's there. And that's what distraction does. The distractions eliminate our ability to find and begin to develop freedom in our lives as well. And then it also says he will die from lack of self-control is what this passage talks about. And it's important for you to realize, like, distraction may not necessarily lead to your physical death, but distraction could lead maybe to the death of a career. Distraction could lead to the death of a marriage or a relationship. Distraction can lead to the death of a parental relationship with a child or vice versa. It could lead to death in those ways. So it's something ultimately that we need to be aware of because there is a cost. And so again, in his book, Undistracted, here's what Bob Goff said that I thought was really good. And you can see this quote right on the screen. It says, distraction robs us of the ability to both live in the moment and discern what lasts. It robs us of the ability to be able to both live in the moment. And here's the thing, and when I talk about living in the moment, I'm talking about actually being present. I mean, we've seen it, right? You go out to a restaurant to eat, and you look over at the table, and there's a family sitting at the table, and everyone in the family are all on their what? Phones. They're all on their phones. No one's interacting with one another. No one's talking to each other. So that's a moment. That could have been a moment of connection. It robs us of the moment. And then also he says that, which is great, he says that it hinders us from being able to discern what really matters. Because we're so distracted by what it is that's in front of us, we forget what's really important. What is it that we're trying to build? What is it that we're trying to move forward? What is it that we're trying to grow into? What is it that we're trying to become? A distraction kind of moves us away from that, and it hinders us from being able to grow in those ways. But here's the beauty of this as well, is whenever someone is kidnapped, right? Whenever someone is kidnapped, they call the family and they ask for what? A ransom. They ask for a ransom. And the ransom is what? It is a price to be paid to set you free. So the family pays the ransom and then you are set free. So here's the beauty of this, is that if you have been kidnapped by distraction in your life, if you have been, and distraction has issued a ransom, it tells us this in Romans chapter 6, verse 4. It says, for we died and were buried with Christ by baptism. And just as Christ was raised from the dead by the glorious power of the Father, now we also may live new lives. So here's the beauty of this, is the ransom of distraction has been paid by the sacrifice of Christ. So here's the beauty. You don't have to beat your distractions because they've already been beaten. They've already been beaten because of what it is that Christ has done. So all we have to do then is, because Christ has already arranged our freedom, then all we have to do is begin to look at and say, okay, God, how can I begin to connect with you and begin to live out the freedom that you've already rescued me to have? So that's the beauty of this, is you are not locked into your distraction. You're free. And you can begin to live free now. So with that, what is the key though? What is the key to being able to live free? There's this guy named Paul. And Paul wrote a majority of the second half of the Bible called the New Testament. And what Paul talks about in a passage called Philippians chapter 3 is he talks about how religious he was at this point, at a certain point in his life. And he just realizes that religious part of him was trying to follow all the rules and all those things. That religious part of him also it was because of that he actually was responsible for arresting and possibly being present when Christians were killed. Like that was his thing. And so he has this incredible encounter with Jesus, and he begins to realize, like, I want that real connection. I want to pursue Jesus. I want to pursue him. And so he talks about being able to look, what it would look like to attain that. And then he says this, which is really interesting. He says in Philippians chapter 3, verse 13, it says, "No, dear brothers and sisters, I have not achieved it." In other words, I have not achieved that place yet. I have not achieved it. But I focus on one thing, forgetting the what? Forgetting the past and looking where? Forward to what lies ahead. Forgetting the past and looking forward to what lies ahead. So I'm going to do a quick survey this morning. And I'm just going to ask you a question. And I want to encourage you to feel free to yell the answer out and answer this question out loud. So when you are driving in your car and you're looking out in front of you, what's larger, the windshield or the rearview mirror? Which is larger? Yeah. And I'm sure you're going, well, Ken, it's kind of obvious. Right? Like, why are you asking me this question? You already know the answer to it. Yes, it's the windshield. Now, here's the thing, is you never see someone driving like this. At least we might back up that way. Well, now today, because of technology, it's like driving like this. Right? Because we're looking at our rearview camera. But you don't see anyone driving that way. When we drive forward, right, what are we looking at? We're driving forward, and we're looking out of the windshield. We're looking at where we're going. We're not looking at where we've been. Now, the rearview mirror is nice because it gives you a chance to be able to see some of the things that are happening behind you. It gives you a chance to be able to see that, but we're not driving by the rearview mirror. Some of us, our distraction is our past. We're so focused on our past, allowing our past to define us, allowing our past to make us, allowing our past to uproot us, allowing our past to hinder us. We're so focused by our past, and sometimes that distraction is also in our past as well. So yes, you look in the rearview mirror, you kind of see the things, but your focus is on what is in front of you. So look in your rearview mirror, find out, and here's what I encouraged you to do last week, is I encouraged you to do an assessment. And it was a distraction assessment. If you didn't do that last week, I want to encourage you to do that this week, where you take a day or two, and you just kind of track all the times where all of a sudden you find yourself distracted. And begin to figure out what is it that you are distracted by. So that way, because sometimes we can't begin to overcome our distractions if we never identify what they are, so that we can begin to move forward and see changes happening in our lives. But we learn from that. And then in Philippians chapter 3, verse 14, he says, "I press on to reach the end of the race and receive the heavenly prize for which God through Christ Jesus is calling me." So I'm looking forward and I'm pressing on to reach that mark. You know, this week, be praying for the Ballard family, because our house just got really big. On Tuesday, we took Xavier back and moved him back into his dorm at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And yesterday, we moved Tensai back into Stanford. So we drove up to Stanford yesterday, moved her in, and drove her back. So between our two kids, we have driven 19 hours, this week, and we would completely do it again. But it was one of those things where moving forward, we were moving towards a goal, right? We were moving towards going to get them to their school, and then we were looking forward to the goal of getting home and arriving there. That was kind of the deal. So we were focused on getting there. And I don't know about you, but sometimes it's kind of nice to have like the map on to kind of give you guide and direction. But also, have you noticed that sometimes like you're driving along and you're telling yourself, like, I'm not going to look at the clock. I'm not going to look at the clock. I'm not going to look at the clock. And then what do? Look at the clock. And you think, 5 minutes? I thought I was at least driving an hour, right? So sometimes getting to that destination may feel like forever, but the goal is keep pressing forward, keep moving forward, because eventually, as you continue to pursue God and connect with Him, eventually you'll arrive. But you keep pushing, keep moving forward. Then the other thing that you have to be careful about that today is a big challenge is what they call distracted driving, right? You have to be careful, which is really interesting also to me because with Apple CarPlay, I've been more distracted with Apple CarPlay than I have with my phone. It hasn't necessarily made it easier in some ways, but it's helped. But driving up to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo on Tuesday, Xavier and Heidi were in Xavier's car driving up, and I was driving up by myself. And so I knew in driving up, I wanted to have snacks and be able to drink something while driving. So what I did was I took my water bottle and I put my water bottle in the cup holder right next to me. And the good thing is my water bottle has a pop-up. So I would just, in the car, just pop it up with my finger, pull it out, and be able to drink from it. Sorry, that went down wrong. I'd be able to drink from it as I was driving. The other thing that I did was on the seat right next to me, I had a bag of nuts. And so what I would do, and the bag of nuts, I had already opened it before I left, and it was in a Ziploc bag. So what I could do is as I was driving, I reach over, grab the bag of nuts, open it, sit it in my lap, and then eat the nuts. I would eat the nuts in my lap. And I wanted to make sure I say that very clearly because as I was practicing, I kept saying my nuts, which is completely wrong. That's not what I was thinking. So the nuts. I was eating the nuts. So, and maybe I should have said that at church, but it's too late now. So I was, but what I would do, so I was be able to completely got distracted. See, don't do that. So I got that in the car. So then what I would do is I would take it, I would kind of open it with my hand, be able to eat, and then be able to take my hand, close it back. Never took my hand off the steering wheel, never took my eyes off the road. I had a plan, kind of thing. And so that's the idea with distraction, is what you want to begin to do is you want to begin to implement a plan into your life. It's going to help you. Not only, so I was able to identify what possibly could be a distraction and come up with a plan to be able to make sure that it wasn't one. So you want to be able to do that, for yourself and everything as well. So with that, last week I encouraged you to make a commitment. That is to go through and do a distraction assessment of your life. This week I want to encourage you to make a decision. And that decision you can see right on the screen. And that is, Jesus, I will eliminate my distractions with your help. Focus on loving you and seeking you with all I have. And seeking you with all I have. Again, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. And love your neighbor as yourself. But God, I'm going to remove. And here's the beauty of this, too, is if you're able to get to a point where you are able to start to remove the distractions that hinder you in connecting with God, you'll also begin to see that it can spill over to other areas of your life as well, where you'll be able to manage your finances and not be distracted there. You'll be able to manage your time and not be distracted there. You'll be able to manage your career and not be distracted there. It really kind of sets the tone for other aspects of your life as well. So now we're going back to Proverbs 5. We're going to spend some time there. And again, remember we said that what Solomon talks about is the immoral woman. And the way that he describes the immoral woman is also a great way to look at distraction. There's some similarities that are there. It's a really great metaphor for that. So that's what we're going to spend our time looking at. So in Proverbs chapter 5, verses 3 and 4, he says this, "For the lips of an immoral woman are as sweet as honey, and her mouth is smoother than oil. But in the end, she is as bitter as poison, as dangerous as the double-edged sword." So the first secret to being able to overcome distraction is to stop buying into the promises of distraction. Stop buying into the promises of distraction. Because sometimes we do this, right? I'll get this distraction and I'll be able to find peace or I'll be able to find relief. And I get it. Sometimes you just want to unwind. So you get home and you turn on Netflix, because I just want to unwind. But the problem is, as soon as I turn Netflix off, where's my problem? It's still there. It's still there. So don't buy into the promise of distraction, because distraction promises escape. And whatever it is that you fall into because of the distraction is just temporary. It never, ultimately never satisfies, or it never fulfills. So don't fall into that. Proverbs chapter 5, verse 5 says, her feet go down to death. Her steps lead straight to the grave. So when you think about distraction, also think about what it is that distraction leads to. Where does it go? What do you accomplish as a result of the distraction? What do you accomplish as a result of it? And the reality is, it says that it just leads you to the grave. Why? Because of distraction, you never reach your full potential of who you could be. You never reach the point of being able to be someone who leaves a legacy, to impact the life of other people, to see their lives change. It never gives you the opportunity to be able to do so. You are robbed by distraction and what it is. And so as we look at this, is to remember that the secret of being able to overcome distractions is to realize distraction is not my friend, and distraction is not looking out for what is best for me. It's not. And it's not providing all it is that it promises. And so in Proverbs chapter 5, verse 6, it goes on and says, for she cares nothing about the path to life. She staggers down a crooked trail and doesn't realize it. And doesn't realize it. And so again, that brings us back even to a further understanding about distraction. And that is, distractions they don't care about me. My distractions don't care about me. I turn to it for comfort. I turn to it for escape. I turn into it to get away from the world. I turn to it for those things. And ultimately, my distractions don't care about me. They don't care about me reaching my potential. They don't care about me connecting with God. The only thing that distraction cares about is what? Me being distracted. And as a matter of fact, we can even begin to look at how things are designed to keep me distracted. How they're designed to keep me distracted. Because even, for example, even if we're scrolling because there's always going to be that next reel, or there's going to be that next post, and that one could be good. That one could be funny. So distractions are designed to keep us withdrawn and to keep us focused on the distraction. So it's key to remember that it doesn't care about me. It doesn't care about my potential. It doesn't. So it's a lie that if we fall into and believe that, oh, man, this is going to bring me fulfillment or satisfaction or peace or just, no, it's not. It's not. And then Proverbs chapter 5, verses 18 through 20, it says, let your wife be a foundation of blessing for you. Rejoice in the wife of your youth. She is a loving deer, a graceful doe. Let her breast satisfy you always. And yes, that is in the Bible. It says, let her breast satisfy you always. May you always be captivated by her love. Verse 20, why be captivated, my son, by an immoral woman, or fondle the breasts of a promiscuous woman? Why? Why throw it away? And so with this, here is the final and the most important secret that we have for being able to escape distraction in our lives. And that is to realign our lives to what matters. To realign our lives with what's important. So if we are saying that distraction is like the immoral woman, then my encouragement would be stop pursuing the floozy, or your life is going to be a doozy. Right? You're going to remember that for the rest of your lives now. Stop pursuing the floozy, or your life is going to be a doozy. So with that in mind, begin to realign our lives. So here's what I want to encourage you to do. And that's just start replacing distraction. Replacing distraction with what really matters. So like I said, I'm not against television. I'm not against scrolling. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But we know the moment that distraction becomes a time waster. We know that. So basically, maybe just put systems in your life that will help you. Say, hey, I'm only going to scroll for 20 minutes, set an alarm for 20 minutes. I'm only going to watch like an hour of television, set an alarm for that. But then also what you can do is begin to replace it. Begin to replace. So what if the 20 minutes of distraction, what if we replace 20 minutes of distraction with time to pray and read the Bible and connect with God? What if we replace some of the time that we spend watching television with actually turning off the TV and hanging out and playing games with our family? What if we took the time that we surrendered to distraction and began to take it and reassign ourselves and realign? You know what I'm saying? What if we took the time to shut down the distraction and reconnect? That's what it is. Reconnect our lives to that which matters and reassign our time. Because here's the thing that I've also found with distraction is it is a time vampire, isn't it? It's a time vampire. You sit down and you start watching something or you start scrolling, and then the next thing you know, I'm going to go to bed at 11. Like, that's my goal. And then you start scrolling, and then next thing you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you need to get up at 6. And you're like, man, how did that happen? How did that happen? So as we look at this, this is our encouragement, for this is being able to get to a point where with this aspect of realigning our lives is let's just begin to find healthy balances. And at the end of the day, that we can look at our lives and be able to know, man, I connected with God with my time today. I've shown love to others with my time today. I've grown with my time today. I've developed with my time today. And I also want to say this too. If you're trying to eliminate distraction out of your life, you might start this process and still be distracted tomorrow, right? So I also want to make this really clear that this is not about guilt or anything like that. So if you yield to it, if you find yourself in it, just realign. Like, oh my goodness, God forgive me for allowing myself to fall into distraction. And help me this week to kind of focus and begin to align myself and my life with what's really important. What's really important. So the two distractions. I made a post on social media this week, and I said this: if I could go back to my 20 to 30-year-old self, what would I say to myself? And I said that I would avoid distraction. And I said the two distractions I would encourage myself to avoid. One is time wasters. We've already kind of talked about that. But I will also encourage myself to avoid those mental internal distractions. Because sometimes time wasters are a result of the mental internal distractions that happen in here. The distractions that say, I'm not good enough. I'm not loved enough. I'm not acceptable enough. I'm not forgiven. I'm too ashamed. Those aspects of not being enough that we start to believe, then what happens is it becomes easier for us to be distracted because I don't think I'm worth the life that I'm trying to live anyway. So begin to eliminate the internal distractions. How? By recognizing the love that God has for you. The love that He has for me. That He has chosen me, that He accepts me, that He loves me. And I root myself in that. And then all of a sudden, what will happen is I will begin to look at those distractions and I'll be able to say, you know what? I want to live for something better. I want to have something more. I want to be something more in my life. So that we can begin to ruthlessly eliminate distraction out of our lives. So again, here at Encounter, our church is based on the core values that Jesus Christ talked about in the Great Commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. So here at Encounter, we say love up for loving God with all that you have. We say love out for loving others, and love in for loving yourself. So in this message, and then what we try to do with our message is we try to pull three elements out of the message that's always connected with love up, love out, and love in. So from the message today, love up, here's what I want to encourage us to do. Forget your mistakes while focusing on and pursuing God. Remember, Paul said, forgetting what is behind, I am moving forward. Forget, stop allowing your failures to have such a vocal impact in your life and influencing your life. Yes, you've messed up. Yes, you failed. We all have. We all have. But also, yes, he's a forgiving God. Yes, he's an accepting God. And yes, we can begin to move differently and live differently. So forget your mistakes and move forward for who he is and towards who he is. Love out. Share what you are learning about distractions and invite someone on the journey with you. Share what you're learning about distractions and invite someone on the journey with you. Maybe one of the best things that you could do is sit down with someone and say, hey, you know what? Here are some things I'm learning about distraction. And I want to begin to eliminate distractions out of my life. So can we do this together? Let's identify what our distractions are together, and let's just encourage each other. And let's encourage each other. And then if we fail, hey, you know what? We're human. We make mistakes. Let's learn from a mistake, and let's continue to move forward. So I'll make sure that it's really clear that the connection that you have with someone and processing through this isn't a time for us to guilt ourselves into change. Have someone else guilt us into change. So make sure that you're choosing someone who doesn't operate from the mode of guilt. They're operating from the mode of encouragement to uplift you and encourage you as well. And then love in. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. Get up and replace the distractions in your life. Forgive yourself. Get up and replace the distractions in your life. Again, I want to say this. If the creator of the universe, the God of heaven and earth, the one who took on bodily form to come on this earth and to go to the cross for your sins and to rise from the grave and declare you free, if that God can forgive you, then who are you not to forgive yourself? Who are you not to forgive yourself? I mean, think about it. What have you created with your words? What have you created with your words? His words said, let there be light, and boom, there was. His words put the stars in the universe. His words put the moon and the sun in its place. His words caused us to be alive. That's what his words have done. So why should I take my words, who have not come remotely close? Because what can I create with my words? So why should I place the power of my words over the power of he who is the creator? Why should I? So if he says you're forgiven, then who are we to say I'm not forgiven? And if he says I have given you value, then who are you to say that I am not of value? Who are you? So allow his love to be present and to invest and to change your life. Father, I thank you